Hi there, and welcome back to the Message Marketing Pod. I'm your host, Christopher Melotti from Melotti Content Media, and this is a special episode. I'm really excited about this one because we have the beautiful Claire Stiles from C Legal & Co. I want to get the name right. And today what we're going to be talking about is like legal marketing, legal firm marketing, legal professional marketing, which is a very important niche for so many Australians. And I really want to reiterate the power of marketing in the legal space. And there's no better advocate for this than the lovely Claire. So I'm going to throw over to Claire, and then we're going to throw in, and we're going to just basically talk for everyone listening and watching. This is going to be a really juicy episode, not just for the legal industry, but also for anyone who thinks that they can't shake up the mold with marketing, because there's so many industries out there like finance, cybersecurity, NDIS, and of course law, that where people think, oh, the default has to be plain or stuffy, and that's not the case. And Claire is a big advocate for this. So Claire, would you like to jump in and introduce yourself, and then let's start chatting?
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Chris, and I'm super excited to be here. I've run my firm for 3 years now, and when I first went to a branding agency, I knew exactly how I wanted to be seen in the world, and that was really important from the start of my journey to even the evolution and where I am today. I was very clear that I did not want to look or sound like a lawyer or a law firm.
And I want to pause you there just to give everyone some context, because Claire started off as wills and estate and probate. Is that right? Like you're all that sort of space?
No, well, I started off generalist.
Generalist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it started off as a generalist firm and the marketing was aimed at high net worth couples and individuals and business owners as their one-stop shop for all their legal requirements. So it was everything from, the ad hoc little bits and pieces of business needs to complex estate planning and estate litigation and commercial litigation and commercial disputes and property and this and that. And so, it definitely was a generalist firm to start, and the marketing was more around the ideal client versus the services. That's kind of where the start of the firm was kind of at.
Right. And that's fantastic. And this is where, and Claire, you'll hear me say to the listeners and watchers a lot, because for me, this podcast is all about value, right? I want people to take away value, not just to listen to stories, but to get inspiration for their own companies, businesses, whatever they're working for. And so what I'm hearing from Claire is that originally it was like anyone in their own spaces, we start out and we go, right, we've seen what other people are doing. This is the cliche go-to. This is what everyone else is. And we go out there. And then, as you can see, Claire, you found your own niche and your own space, and you were very ambitious and you know what? Can we also say a little bit controversial, right? And I think that that's a great thing. And I think that people need to stop shying away. We need to stop being shy about being noticed, because it's okay to be noticed. So Claire, do you want to, so basically when you went to this branding agency and you said, look, I know what I want to shake things up. Where did that inspiration come from?
It came from, I think, a deep desire for me not to be put in a pigeonhole of a stuffy, boring lawyer.
And you're anything but, right?
Yeah. And I think it was really driven as well by me going out as a boutique law firm. I'm the brand. And if you don't take ownership, in my view anyway, and this is from my experience and the kind of business that I run, if I didn't take ownership from day one that I'm actually the brand, then I just don't think any of the things that I do now on social media and what I do to promote the company makes much sense. Because if you don't have that fundamental acceptance of I am the brand, then you're not actually going to have the same response or impact if you're thinking there's the brand and then I'm just the lawyer part of the brand. So I think that's where my mindset's always been is, well, if I'm going to be the brand and I'm accepting that, I need to be able to be myself as much as I can in a professional, fun space.
Oh my God, there's so much to unpack here, right? So much. So, okay, so for everyone listening, watching, which I will keep saying, is what we're talking about here is this fundamental question of personal brand first company brand, right? And so, and I get this, Claire, because for me, this is a big thing about my business as well, right? Is I've got mentors and people that always say, no, Chris, remove yourself from the brand, remove yourself from the brand. You can't be there for everyone and people need to, and I get that. I get that to an extent. But the reality is today is all of the marketing research is showing that people are buying from people now, not just business brands. And we're seeing this in real estate. We're seeing this in all finance, right? People go and get mortgages and loans and commercial loans. They love a brand, but they really want the person. Right? Because it's the person they get to talk to. It's the person that understands their situation. It's the person dealing with them. This mentality has shifted. And so I can see what you've done, Claire, is that, yes, you've got C & Co, right? You've got that legal firm business, but C Legal, but like what it's there also is this like need to create your own personal brand. And that makes people a little bit nervous, I feel. And you and I have both done this for our businesses. So let's start with you. Like, what if you like, because I know that what people are thinking right now in the podcast is, oh my gosh, does that mean I have to become an influencer? Does that mean I have to become a slave to like TikTok or Instagram? Or does this mean that I cannot separate myself from my business? What's your perspective on this, Claire?
So I think you need to play to your strengths, because I think that you need to be genuine and authentic in whatever you're doing. And so
Yep.
if you're more of an introvert and you're running a business and those things don't come naturally to you, then
Yep.
I would be saying outsource. I would be saying find ways that you can still promote the business. But if you don't want to be the face of the business, there are other ways and tools that you don't have to be the face of the business, in my view. But you're creating a different business model than the one that I'm talking about, where I am playing to my strengths. I'm a natural extrovert. I'm a natural talker. I love to connect with people. Those are my strengths that I want to be able to leverage off. However, if you are in this position where you are thinking, well, I can't do that, or that's not my personality, I can absolutely have empathy for people like that. Yes, we all have to get out of our comfort zones. But I think you do need to be authentic to who you are. And maybe that is, I actually, this is a weakness of mine. So I do need to build skills in it, and I need to outsource, and I need to actually expend other, maybe it's a financial investment in a firm to help you and mentor you to become better at your personal brand. Because I still think, in my view, especially in my space, which is boutique legal services, there's no way that I can't be the brand. I don't think it hits the same kind of clients that I want to hit, because of that. People do business with people, and there's so much, especially in the legal space, of like, AI is just going to take us over, and like a lot of the legal services will be provided by AI. Like, there's been a lot of commentary about like in the future, like lawyers will be, not needed, or whatever the story is. But there's been a lot of like commentary in that space with how tech is going to be used, and we've got quite a bit of tech now helping us. And why I think like that is, I think, well, I'm providing strategy to my clients, and that's the piece where it's about.
I'm exactly the same. Right?
Yeah.
Like we're in the same boat here. Like marketing is always like, oh, it's under threat, oh, AI. But the reality is, and I get where you're going here, this is Claire, is that AI cannot do strategy, because strategy is far too bespoke. There's too many scenarios and too many angles of innovative thinking that you need to be a human for that. And I think I know what you're saying here. You're saying a personal brand is even more important than ever before because of that fact. Because if you think about it, right, is that if you are a generic firm, it's pretty easy to remove the firm and plug in a legal software, right? But if you cannot remove Claire, you cannot remove Chris from that, because there's no equivalency of AI to Chris or AI to Claire. And I see what you're saying. And I think we should address this particularly with introverts, right? And it is like anything, we shouldn't be thinking, oh, introverts and extroverts and things like that, because there are a lot of introverts out there that do this as well, very well. And you don't have to, like, I just want to reiterate, you don't have to go out there and do a massive explosion on TikTok and Instagram and think, oh my God, that's what Claire and Chris said to do. That's not what we're saying here. We're saying that people want to know that there's so much value when, especially when you're a business owner or top level management or executive, there's so much value that you have in all your expertise. And I find that sharing articles, like let's say you're not a video person, right? Sharing articles, written articles is a great way to stand out on LinkedIn and become known. So it's not just your brand flying flag, it's you. Right. Then you can do, when you're feeling more confident, a podcast like this, right? I know that Claire and I are big extroverts, big personalities, so it sounds like easy mode for us. But if you're not, you don't have to have your camera on. Start with just voice, right? And get comfortable with that. I know I'm completely desensitized by video and all that now, so I just whack out a video all the time. And what I'm saying is, and what Claire is trying to say is, don't be afraid to have your own personal brand, because what it does is it augments your business brand. So like if you're selling something as simple as candles, right? And I love candles. And what it is you can say, you don't have to go, hi, I'm Michelle and I'm the candle lady. What you can do is you can go on there and you can say, I'm Michelle. I started this business this way for this reason. And I love interesting sense that no one knows about. And so her personal brand becomes the person that's putting together these interesting smells, and it makes it the brand 2D to 3D, because if you think it 2D is a candle supplier, 3D is a lady behind it that's putting all these things together. And so back to our businesses as service-based businesses, is that it just means that when people see me online and see Claire online doing these things and getting out there and living her truth and all that, it just means that when people want to work with you more. Is that right, Claire? Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what would you say for the legal firm, but then we'll go into like others, but for what would you say are some good steps that you like embraced, especially think back a year when you went from that to this? What little tips and tricks would you suggest for people that you did?
Yeah. So I think rewind to before I even started the firm, and I just have this picture in my mind because it doesn't plague me, but it always is that reminder of where I was to where I am now.
Yeah.
And it's when I was shooting some video at the beginning, through the branding that we did, and I did beautiful, I think, you need to spend money on really good photography and a really good, great imagery, especially for your website. And what I've loved with working with marketing people is I view the website as like a museum. It's like just the thing that you need to have. It's a presence, but it's not it's not really the driving. It's not the driver of my business anyway, but it's there, and social proof and reputation and all that. So that needs to look really great. And if you want to stand out in the market, you need to invest in really great photography. So that was number one.
I agree. And we'll pause there for a second. Don't forget what you're going to say next. But for everyone listening and watching, that is a great tip, right? Is that it's important. Every little like crumb of your brand sends a signal. And if your website is full of mediocre, then you look mediocre. Don't fool yourself. Okay. It's very, like, I know my website years ago used to have all this stock imagery on it. And then the minute I started to get photo shoots of my team and all of that and put myself and all my team in videos and things, suddenly the team came to life in the real world. So I agree. Getting professional photography, and it doesn't have to be a glamour shoot. It can, I'm sure that's great. But what it is it's like you working, you recording a podcast, you being there. When you're front and center and people can see that you're real, and your photography and all of everything you do reflects you and your personality, the expectation rises, and that's where you stand out. Sorry, I'm saying, Claire, that was a great point.
Because there's just so much connection in even the story that people will create in their own mind with the imagery of an actual human being and a real person, as opposed to stock images. And I always also thought to myself when I was starting the branding journey was, the things that I can't stand when I go to a website, I don't want a part of that. Like if there's a stock image again of, our little justice woman, I just
Oh,
don't
yes.
want that,
The lawyer said,
like,
the lady,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't want I don't want library books behind me. Like, I don't want, like I said at the beginning, I did not want to look or feel like a lawyer. I wanted to feel like a lifestyle brand that provides legal services. And so that has hit from day one. And because of the kinds of clients that I have and the target market that I have, it really, for me, it just upped that level of kind of branding, and yeah, it elevated the brand. So
I love it.
but where I was going with that was the first videos that I did with that crew, let's call it. And this was before so I was doing this maybe a couple of months before I launched. And so my headspace then was you overthink a lot more at that stage, and you're very critical. And so we did the video, and I've never used I've never used those videos because I didn't like how I presented. I didn't like how I spoke. I couldn't see the confidence piece that I wanted to portray. So I think it's really important,
Yes.
that you need to self-edit. So there's a level of where I'm a bit perfectionist, but also I've gotten over that hurdle now of something is better than nothing, and you want to be able to produce something that is of value, but it doesn't have to be perfect every time.
Yeah, I
So
love this. And
yeah,
then can I just say, I want to reiterate this, is sure, sometimes we don't always make the right decisions, but you can see here that Claire has made the decision where she went, I don't want people to see me in this way.
yeah.
And I think that's really important. Like, for me, I always check all of our social media posts. And despite me having 3 marketing people in my team who are supposed to run my socials, I always check it. Not that it being a perfectionist, it's not that, right? I don't sit there and go, let me just check everything. Not that. What I do is I go, I want to scrutinize what we are saying to the market, because as I said in the start of this podcast, is your personal brand, all of your brand gets affected by what you're putting out there. And all those little breadcrumbs, like you said, I like how you said it's like a museum of your brand, right? Is that people get an impression from everything. And so, like Claire was saying, if Claire had to put out that video, then it would have been an interesting, maybe a detractor to her brand. And so that was a great decision, Claire. Like you're definitely on the money with that one.
Yeah, and it builds. I think you need to also look at everything from that lens of every time you put something out, it still comes back to, for me, whenever I put something out, it still comes back to my core values and the brand values, and then through that journey, which I'll kind of switch across into how I decided to go from a generalist firm to kind of more niching, which I think is really important. And at the beginning, when I was getting some business advice, like I did get a lot of advice as to niching. And I was like, no, nobody puts baby in the corner. Like I was like, don't put me in a box.
Listen to you, Claire. You're like, I'm not being told a thing.
Yeah, exactly right. And I had to learn it. I had to learn those lessons myself. And that's also important in business too, is like you can be told so many things, but unless you see the results for yourself, I don't think it hits the same. And then from there, I kind of listen a little bit more now, which is good. But I think for me, the reason why I decided to niche down was because there were certain areas I just wasn't enjoying. I didn't want to do certain work anymore. And so I thought, well, I'm running this business, so I can do what I want. And so I just decided I wanted my new, let's call it branding, was I wanted to be an expert in the complex estate planning space and then property. And what did I do with that lens, especially through LinkedIn and through my Instagram? I only post about those 2 things. I don't post about much else. I sometimes post a little bit about disputes here and there, but not so much anymore, because I only want to be seen as, I want to be forefront of mind, and I want to be seen as the expert in. So then when something does come up, they always know where to go, and they go to me first.
Claire.
And so, yeah.
Right. Like honestly, so just to reiterate for everyone listening and watching, Claire, you are brilliant, right? And I want to explain why to everyone. This is the most important thing and the biggest trap I'm a marketing consultant and I see this all of the time, is that what people do is they get carried away on their socials and they start talking about things that aren't relevant. And that's okay for your own personal Facebook, for instance, where you've got your relatives and friends on. Go nuts on that. For your external personal branding that you're intending to use to drive leads and things, make sure that you are talking to your strengths and your relevant positioning. And I did this recently with a client in recruitment for the same reason, is that she was asking me, she goes, I've never had luck on LinkedIn because I always do is I just post random things. I just go, well, this is interesting. I'm a mum. I want to post about being a mum. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong if you haven't decided what your positioning is first, because you need to cater your message to that. And so what Claire is trying to say, and I love this, Claire, is everything she posts is still authentically her, but it always has a foundation in what she wants people to see, and that is in her legal specialty in the niche. And so for everyone watching, listening, it doesn't matter, don't have to be in legal, you don't have to be in marketing, if you're in finance, cyber, whatever you do, putting your personal brand together doesn't mean you just spam things out. What it takes, and I've done this with myself, is write down, and this is a few steps, write down what your strengths are as a business professional, where you want to be seen. Then second thing is write down the pillars of what you want to position yourself as, right? Then every piece of content needs to go through those two gates. So that's what I do. It's like when I do a podcast, I'm like, does this contribute to my positioning? This podcast itself is contributing to my marketing positioning as a consultant, right? Everything I do, it wasn't just a general chat where Claire and I talked about like croissants, right? That would be off brand for both of us and it wouldn't help us, right? Whereas talking about marketing, legal, positioning, branding, all of that is on brand for us and it helps us. And so I just want to say before I throw back to Claire is, if you want to master your personal brand, it's so important that you don't just go out there and wing it, right? Spend the time like Claire did, like I have done, where you sit there and you go, what do I want to be known for? And how does that filter through all of the content I'm producing? Sorry, Claire. I just think people need to know that, because I had a client once who came to me and they said they did wedding cakes, right? And they were like, I'm known for wedding cakes. And she was doing some amazing stuff with wedding cakes that no one was doing it. Like she was like tempering chocolate with vodka and all this weird stuff, right? And it was bright. She had a huge following and a lot of money coming through. Now, unfortunately, what she did was she started to post quotes, or like random quotes, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with that per se, but she just liked quotes and she started producing all these quotes and things. What ended up happening was her audience of the wedding cake audience left, and all this new audience of quoting, like people that loved quotes, followed her. Then she realized her sales went down. And what happened, but she's like, Chris, but my numbers on my Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, they're all still high because those audiences switched and the quote people were not buying wedding cakes. It can happen so quickly. We see this on LinkedIn. We see this on LinkedIn all the time. There's someone with 100,000 followers or whatever it is, right? And you go, wow, how amazing are they? And then you see what they're posting, which is just random news about the world that has nothing to do with a personal brand. They've got great followers, zero conversion, zero nothing, because people don't know why they're following other than a curator of news. Sorry, I know I got on my rant horse there, but it's really important that it's not about the vanity metrics. It's about how many people are following you for the right reasons, who you're nurturing. Sorry, Claire. I wanted to really make that clear to everyone who's listening.
And I think that's another part of personal branding that people need to understand. It's not personal life. It's a personal brand.
Actually, bingo, right? Yes.
So, and you can bring a little bit of that into it. And I do, like, that's part of your personality. But it's not about showcase. A personal brand is just not, doesn't equal personality. There's an underlying reason and intention why you do things when you're doing it from a personal branding lens. And when you're doing a LinkedIn space, it is a professional platform at the end of the day, and it is growing into something that I think LinkedIn would probably not be thinking, oh, we didn't really intend for this to happen, but it is changing a lot the way that people are interacting with LinkedIn. And so I do think like the different platforms as well you do need to kind of change the way that your content is depending on what platform you're using as well. And I think that's important too, because sometimes where you kind of see it being posted and you're like, oh, that's not really it doesn't really fit so well, then it won't hit so well. And I think, but for me, it's definitely personal branding comes back to what I like to share about my personality in that is my value system, because my value system drives me as a person, which means that's the person you're going to get if you see me as Claire, or if you see me as Claire as lawyer. So I think that to me is important, because it's not, what you see is what you get, in the sense of who I am as a person and what I'm putting out there, and that there's a value add in that space, and that value system space that is a little bit different when I post things about when I meet people and they're inspiring me, and it's more inspirational, and there's kind of that element which may not be traditionally legal. But then I post about the legal stuff as well, and I enjoy doing a little bit of both, especially on the LinkedIn platform. And what I've noticed is that's been hitting very well. People are very interested and engaged. Right now, like, I'm doing meeting 30 people before May 30, and people are so engaged with that.
Yeah.
And I'm very surprised. Like, when I see people are like, oh, who's next? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to be next? Like, I think I'm all lined up. So I think little things like that I didn't think would really be that interesting also hits. And I think it's a bit of trial and error, but everything that, even when it is trial and error, needs to be done intentionally. There can't just be the willy-nilly posts.
Oh, agreed. And that's the thing. That's what I want to get across. So we will start to wrap up the podcast, so that, because I know we're probably giving a lot of tips and people are getting like, oh, so what I'm hearing from Claire is that don't be afraid of your personal brand. Make sure that it's deliberate. Don't be afraid to be yourself, right? Make sure that you are getting out there and being authentic and all of that kind of great stuff, because I think that's really important. But I think it's also there's a lot of uniqueness to this. And so I think what we need to be saying here is take the time to put together what you want it to be, what you want to stand for, be strategic about your personal brand. And the key takeaway I'm getting is, just because your industry is traditionally quite conservative, like there's a lot of them out there, right? Like law, cybersecurity, like finance, there's so many of them, like NDIS, even some of the other, like we've seen a lot of hospitality tends to be that, consulting, right? All of that, marketing. Even you'd think that marketing would be vibrant, but sometimes it's very, very plain 2D, right? And so what I would say is, make sure that you have that strategic delivery of what you're doing, and don't be afraid if it's genuine for you. Just because your industry is traditionally quite conservative doesn't mean you need to be. Claire, do you want to like build on that?
No, I think that's absolutely true. Just be authentic and be intentional with your personal branding, and just listen to those around you as well. For, if there's people out there that you want to be your mentor, reach out to them. Like, just don't be like, there's that level of, it's great when I receive a message where it's like, can we catch up? And I don't know them, but they're a LinkedIn connection, and it's like, yeah, that would be great. So I think if you're in that kind of building stage and you want to pick people's brains who have been there, I don't think people should be afraid to ask people for a cup of coffee. And
oh no, I'm more like, to be honest, my managing director always gets annoyed at me because my diary is always full of like meetings for like the next 2 weeks, and she's like, when are you going to do the briefing stuff? And I'm like, I'm sorry,
I know.
just because I like to talk, and that's how you build genuine connections. So all right, so look, this ended up being a personal branding podcast, and I think that's great, because that's what people are looking for right now, is how to find the right places to do your personal brand. Don't be afraid, right? Like, just make sure that you're not winging it. That's what I would say. See how deliberate Claire is? I mean, I'm very deliberate about mine as well. I'm always like, I always check everything, make sure that it's all going out the right way. It's speaking about the same things. Sometimes I don't know how you feel, Claire. Sometimes you might feel like you're a bit boring. And I don't mean that in like that you're putting on a boring facade. Not that, it's because you're talking about the same thing so often that sometimes you can go, oh, I really need to change. But that's okay, because remember, your audience doesn't see you every day.
Yeah.
You do. Right. So don't think, oh, I've, if I'm a concreter, that I have to, oh my God, I'm sick about talking about concrete. But that's what people want you to be. And niching, like Claire was saying, niching is really important. So for me, I talk about marketing day in, day out, left, right, and center. But that ends up getting me a reputation then people go, well, Chris is the marketing guy. Like Claire's the legal lady that you need to go to, right? She's the professional, outspoken woman that she needs to be, and it's great. So, Claire, anything to add? I know, sorry, I keep throwing to you, like before we wrap up.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, look, Claire, can I just say you've done a fantastic job at your branding. I really mean it. Like and it's taken a lot of guts because yes, it's controversial at times. And I don't mean that she doesn't, make political statements, but I'm sure that you've ruffled a few feathers, right? You don't have to say name it or anything, but I'm sure that you've ruffled a few feathers. And that's okay, right? I know that people that sit on the fence and don't do anything, right? I've always said this, people that sit on the fence and don't do anything, they get forgotten, right? Now, if you don't, I'm not saying you have to go out there and be political, but people that are conservative and sit in the middle and always stay vanilla are the ones that fall into the crowd, right? Don't be afraid if you've got something to give, like Claire had. Like Claire just busted out of her eggshell one day, right? She was like, that's it, I've had enough. and now she's come out swinging and she's known for it, right? Yeah, sure. Not everyone will resonate with it, right? I'm sure that Claire, you get people that go, oh, that's not the lawyer I want, right? But remember, that's not the client you want.
Exactly. It's just the same. I say no to a lot of work because it's not the right fit.
Yep. So that's what I'm saying is take that into account when you're thinking, oh my God, I might offend someone, right? Yeah. Imagine thinking that way. I'm not going to do it because I might offend someone, even though I would attract 99 others, right? So don't think like that. Anyway, I hope this has been a great episode. Please check out Claire's website. So I've got it in front of me. She's clegalandco.com.au. It's Claire Styles. She is a fantastic lawyer, very passionate about what she does, and she's just fabulous in every way. And I would certainly want her by my side. So thank you so much, Claire, for joining me for this episode. It's been a really great episode of the Message Marketing Pod. So I'm your host, Christopher Melotti from Melotti Content Media. Please subscribe to our channel, of course. There's always great episodes from great guests like this. And thank you so much, Claire.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good
day.